So we are done with a lot of things. We started off with the concept of object-oriented programming, and we created some objects. We knew about what is static and non-static. We had basic drivers. We downloaded two drivers, that is say Firefox and Chrome. And we discussed about system, but not deeply. We just used system class, so we will be discussing about this in the next, in the current lecture. Then we discussed about the concept of constructor, how we can use constructor. We discussed about Edge driver, sorry, Chrome driver. We have not mentioned, say, Firefox driver over here. Edge driver is also not mentioned right now, and Internet Explorer driver is also not mentioned. So we'll be discussing these two drivers after day 4, or on the day 4. We won't be discussing them right now in the current lecture. Right, so I'll just mark them green, all the things we have done. And there are 2-3 things which are left. So we would be covering these things anytime in between the lecture. Okay. So over here, the first thing is to start Eclipse. Where is Eclipse? Either you can look for this over here, and if you're not able to look for it here, no need to worry. You have the location, right? Just remember the location where it is installed. Go to that directory, and here this is installed. So let us just run this, right? It will take a little bit time for this to open. Let us just wait for this to open, then we can work with it. Okay, so we need to launch it, and this one is working fine now. And over here, it will take a little bit more time. So we'll just wait for this. Right, and it is taking a bit more time. Okay, so it has started. We can work with it now. And here we created day 1 and day 2. Right, I'll create another project. This one is day 3. So right click over here. It is taking a bit time. New Java project. And my system is getting stuck a bit. So we have to wait for this. And the project name is day 3. Right. So over here, this has been created. Now, today, what we would be discussing about is we would be discussing about interfaces, right? So let us just close the older project. We don't need that project right now. So close unrelated projects is the another option that we can use whenever there are more than, say, one projects already open. No need to go to each and every project and open it, right? We can simply close the unrelated projects immediately, right? Now over here, what we would be doing is right click over the source, go to new. Now what we usually do is we create a class. Today we would be creating an interface, and say we have an interface named phone, right? So we have phone. Now what is interface? What is the need of it? So let us just have an idea about it, what this is and how it would we would be able to say work with it. So over here, let us just start Epic Pen. So over here, what we would be doing is, now the thing is, suppose we have 3 different classes, right? And this one is class 1, this one is class 2, and this one is class 3, right? Now the thing is that, suppose this one is iPhone, right? And this one is, say, Pixel, and the third one is, say, Galaxy phone, any Samsung phone. Okay, so there are 3 different phones, or say better, BlackBerry. right? So there are phones of three different brands: Apple, Google, and BlackBerry, right? Now Apple has some functionality. Say we have a functionality, we make calls, right? So they have a phone dialer, right? And so we have a phone dialer and we have messaging. On the other hand, in Pixel, we also have phone dialer and it's just called phone. And say in Pixel, the messaging is called as messenger, right? On the other hand, say BlackBerry, they're different. They call it call, right? And messages, right? So calls and messages. Now the thing is that what we know is that we are making call through this, right? We are making call through this and this. The thing is that the implementation is different. The basic thing is same, right? On the other hand, messaging is also same. Now, can we do something so that anybody who is making a phone should have specified these three features by default? Yes, we can do that. So what is the benefit? Why we do that? Right? This might be the question in your mind. Suppose I specify a protocol that every phone should have a calling feature and messaging feature, right? Simple thing, there should be two features. I'm not talking about any other thing, but yes, so these two features should be there. Now this means that I can have any feature here as well. For example, I have iMaps, and in case of Pixel, we have Google Maps, and in case of BlackBerry, they also have Google Maps or say Here Maps. Now the features are almost same, but their implementation is different. The way they work is different, and the ultimate goal is same, right? So can we have something? Can we tell them that they should be implementing these things, right? What if I specify some other feature here, right? Say I would want one more thing to be done, and that thing is say photo, right? Now suppose iPhone does not allow it, or say FM radio, right? So FM radio. Now the thing is that iPhone does not allow it, Pixel does not allow it, maybe BlackBerry allows it. Question is it a mandatory thing? No, it is not a mandatory thing. So we cannot have it. But yes, we know that calling is messaging is a mandatory thing. So can we do something so that we can tell that we can tell all these companies that they should implement calling like this has been implemented, and they should implement messaging, they should implement calling, they should implement messaging and calling and messaging, right? If you notice something, all the features are already implemented here, right? And these are optional features, so it doesn't matter that these features, this feature should be available here as well or here as well, or this feature should be available here as well or here as well, right? Now you guys might be getting confused, so let us just do one thing. Let us have an interface specified, then we'll work over here, then you'll get to know that what I'm trying to say actually. So suppose we have a class, sorry, we have an interface which tells us that there is a method public void say call, right? And there is a method public void SMS, right? We are just describing it here. Sorry, we are just defining it here. We're not describing the data here, right? Defining and describing is two different things. Defining is just telling that there is something, right? Describing is that what's the thing inside it, right? So we have just say specified two things here, that is call and SMS. There are two methods, right? Or you can say that there are two functions. Now what we'll do is we'll create a new class, and this class would be say Apple phone, right? Or say iPhone, or say Apple phone would be better. So Apple phone, right? I'll finish it. Now, what can be done so that we can have the two default methods created here, right? We know that Apple phone is a phone, right? So it would be implementing the basic functionalities of a phone. Can we do something? Can we specify something over here with the class definition that would allow us to have those things automatically added here? Yes, we can. What I'll do is I'll just specify something over here, and that is implements. What it implements phone, right? The moment I specify this, you would notice that there is an error. What is the error? It is just telling us that the type Apple phone must implement the inherited abstract method phone.call. This means that if I click over here, add unimplemented methods, it will just simply add out or add all the methods. Now, if you notice something, I just defined the method names. I did not describe them over here, but here I have to describe these. So what I can do is I can simply print out something over here, say system.out.println, and I would want to print that calling using Apple phone, right? And in the same way, I would be printing over here as well. That is, say system.out.println, and here SMS using Apple phone, right? I did this thing over here. Now what can be done next? What we can do is we can create a new class the same way. This time it would be say Google phone, right? And here I'll click on finish. Now the thing is, again, it implements phone, right? The moment we specify it, we need to specify the methods. This means that it is just specifying a set of rules that call should be there, SMS should be there. It doesn't matter how you're implementing it, right? All that matters is that these things should be here. The functionality should be here, right? What's being done inside it doesn't matter, but yes, we should have that thing here. So what I'll do, I'll simply print over here, and what I'll print is calling, or say call using Google phone, right? And in the same way, I'll print out over here, say SMS using Google phone. So SMS using Google phone, right? So this one is done. Now in the same way, we can create another class, that is BlackBerry phone. Again, you guys might be confused a bit what I'm trying to do. So just be there for a while, you'll get to know that what I'm trying to do actually. So say BlackBerry phone, right? Now again, it implements some interface, right? Now usually what we did was we specified the say command over here, that is implements phone. We can add the interface from here as well, right? So usually it doesn't show up anything. Let us just try, and you can see that it is telling us day 3 / src, and there is a phone. I'll click on OK, and this is done. Phone is specified here. Click on finish, and you're good to go. So it has automatically added all the things that we wanted it to, right? Simply add the definition. So system.out.println, and say call using BlackBerry phone, right? And in the same way, I'll print it over here as well. So SMS using BlackBerry phone, right? So over here, these two things are done, and what we have to do is that we just have to make the objects, right? So what I'll do, I'll create a new class. Now notice it clearly. I'm creating a test phone. I won't be specifying anything over here, but here I would be having a main method, right? So main method is initialized here. Now what we usually do is to create an object, we specify the class name. So say Apple phone, say a phone equals to new Apple phone. This is done. And we can call in the methods, say a phone and dot call, right? And here, what we have to do is that we just need to specify a phone dot call again, sorry, SMS. So this is done. Now this is done. Let us just try running this. And over here, you can see that calling using Apple phone, SMS using Apple phone. These two things are done, right? Guys, just give me a moment. So over here, now say we are done with this. This means that we can create another class. Say we can create another object, this time Google phone, and say gphone equals to new Google phone, right? And then gphone dot call and say gphone dot SMS. Simple. In the same way, we can have BlackBerry phone as well. So BlackBerry phone, B phone equals to new BlackBerry phone, right? And say B phone dot call and B phone dot SMS. Simple, right? I'll run this and you can see that calling using is Apple phone, then call using Google phone, call using BlackBerry phone. All these things are done, right? I'll just rectify it over here so that everything remains almost same, right? And I'll rerun this. So over here, these things are done. I can have a demarcation line added as well. So say system.out.println and I would want to print some equal marks so that we can differentiate between the data, right? So this is done. And over here, control F11. So we are able to see these things, right? This is what we wanted to see as well. Now, the thing is that can we do something to decrease the lines of code? What if I would want to do something? I'll dynamically choose the phone, right? So over here, I'll just change this a bit. And someone has a question. I'll get back to this in some time. Let us just continue with the lecture right now. So over here, we have a variable, so string variable, and that is fine, right? String variable, and the variable name is phone name, right? Equals to say Apple. I'll just specify the phone name right now over here like this. Now we have a phone name. So what I'll do is I'll have a if condition. If what is the condition? Say phone name dot equals and what is the content? So that is Apple. If it is equals to Apple, then it should be having these lines of code, right? Done. Next. So else if, right? What if the browser, sorry, phone name dot equals, right? What if it is a Google phone? So say Google, right? And we'll be having stuff related to Google phone. So I'll just move it here. This is done. And then the third thing is BlackBerry phone. So I'll just have it for BlackBerry phone as well. So say else if, and here the condition is this, that is phone name dot equals. See, the thing is, whenever you're comparing some string type data, you need to compare it like this only. You cannot specify equals to over there. So this is done. So over here, I can have this data. Now the thing is that what it would do is, I'll just remove this line now. This is not needed. Control F11. As we have selected the phone name as Apple, okay, there is a problem. Let us just see what's the problem. Line number 10 is telling us that there is a problem. Okay, I closed one extra bracket. Control F11. This is working fine now. Call using Apple phone, SMS using Apple phone, which is correct. Let us just change the browser name, sorry, phone name, and the phone name is Apple this time. Sorry, Google this time. Control F11, and it is printing out the data for Google. And then let us just have it for BlackBerry as well, right? So over here, now the thing is that we're just specifying something, and these are the lines of code involved, right? So even if I remove all the blank spaces, all the white spaces, we have about 18 lines of code, right? Now the thing is that if you notice something, I'm just repeating some data, right? So over here, what I'll do is I'll create a new class that is test new phone, right? So that you guys can differentiate between both of the things. We'll have a main method here, and Control Shift F. All the white spaces are removed, right? And here, now what we would be having is, well, I'll just copy paste the code, but I'll be changing it later on. Okay. So all the things that we had over here are there as well. Okay. Everything is here. Now the thing is that instead of initializing the class like this, right, we would be changing the way we initialize the class. So what I'll be specifying is, I'll be specifying phone. Say phone equals to null, right? Now what I'll do, I'll just specify something here, that is phone equals to new Apple phone. And here I'll remove these two lines. I'll remove these two lines. And here I'll just specify phone equals to new Google phone, and then phone equals to new BlackBerry phone. We won't be having these lines. Instead, I'll just specify two lines, phone dot call and phone dot SMS, right? So if you notice something, there were 15 lines of code. Now there are 15 lines of code. So 18 is decreased to 15. And now if I run this, would it make any difference? Let us just see that. So it is executing well, right? So what's happening around? I'll just do one thing. I'll comment out the whole part now, right? So I'm commenting out this particular part, and what we would be doing is we would be specifying this thing again. Instead of using the class name, I'm using the interface name. So the interface name is phone, right? And say phone equals to new. Now we cannot initialize the interface itself, right? But yes, we can initialize the object of a implementing class. So we have an option of BlackBerry phone, we have an option of Google phone, and we have an option of Apple phone. We can use any of the options. So I'm done with this. I can simply print out phone.call, and what did I do? Yeah, phone.call. This was needed directly. Control F11, and you can see that calling using BlackBerry phone, and say phone dot SMS. So this time two things, SMS using BlackBerry phone. I'll just change the brand name here. I just want Apple phone. Control F11, Control F11, and you can see that Apple phone is being used now. then say Google phone. So what's happening around over here? How it is able to access these things? So the thing is that whenever we create an object reference, right? Whenever we create an object reference, we can assign it an object of the implementing class whenever it is of an interface, right? So phone is an interface and Google phone is a class which implements phone. So we can simply call out the methods. But there is a catch now. What's the catch? Suppose Apple has iMaps, right? So public void iMaps, right? And here say system.out.println and exclusively it is just printing iMaps, right? So it is just printing this thing, nothing else. In the same way, Google phone has Gmaps, right? Or say Google Maps. So public void Google Maps, right? So Google Maps. Now over here, what we would be doing is we'll just print out system.out.println and say I'll print out Gmaps, right? So this is also getting printed. And in the same way, say BlackBerry doesn't have this feature. Coming back to test new phone, we are using Google phone. What if I try to access say phone dot Google Maps, right? Now I'll try to run this code and let's see what happens. If we notice something, it is already telling us that there is a problem. What's the problem? Line number 18, this thing does not exist, right? If you notice something over here, it will just tell us the method Google Maps is undefined for the type phone, right? Phone is a interface. It has not specified that Google Maps should be there. So we won't be able to. But if I immediately change it to Google phone, now if I run this, you would notice that this is printing Gmaps, which is correct, right? So I'll just go back and I'll specify phone again, but this time I'll be using Apple phone, right? So instead of Google Maps, I'll have iMaps, right? Control F11. Again, the same issue. It is not running. It is not letting us run because it is not defined for this. But the moment I change the type of object reference to say the class name, Apple phone, the error is gone. You can run it and it is running absolutely fine. And it is printing iMaps as well. So what's the difference? So the thing is that whenever you're using a interface object reference, right, you just need to call, you just can't call the methods specified by it. You cannot call the methods which are specified by the class itself, right? So all the things which are specified by the interface itself can only be called by the object reference of the interface, right? This means that we can have something in Selenium like this as well, right? I gave you guys an exercise regarding the dynamic opening of browser. We just need to choose the browser name and then we can work with it, right? So Sumit has a query. Just a second. Yeah, Sumit?
Hi, can you do one thing? Can you run the entire program on a debug node so that we know how the code is working? Because it's loads of information there. We
Yeah.
don't know which is calling what. So if we once debug mode, we can connect all the classes who is calling what.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. So I'll put a debug mark over here as we're using Apple. So I'll put on a debug mark over here as well. So say I'll be having one here and one here, right? We are not using this method right now, so I won't be putting in any mark. And here in the test phone, I'll just debug it. F11 is the key. You can use it directly. You can switch to debug mode now. And here you can see that the code has paused here. I'll hit F6, phone.call. Now you can see that phone is initialized, right? Apple phone is being called off. The thing is that, see, phone is an interface which told us that a implementing class should have these things. Apple just specified this thing in its own way, right? Apple specified that I would be specifying my own method and I'll print call using Apple phone. F6. So we got in here. Now over here, you can see that this would be executed now. We are inside Apple phone. Even if I specify something, let me just stop this execution. And here in the phone interface itself. So if I go back to phone interface, I'll just specify a debug point here as well. See, I'm not able to. Why? The reason is that this code won't be executing at all, right? So I'll just go back, test new phone. I'll rerun this code, F11, and we'll be debugging it here. So we were at line number this. So let us just go forward. I'll hit F6. You can see that it is printing Apple phone, right? F6 again. Now phone. If you notice something, if I go to the variables, you can see the phone variable, right? Which has Apple phone, say, object, right? And this time SMS would be called off from Apple phone. So if I hit F8, you can see that SMS using F8 Apple phone is being printed. But if I change the object, I'll just specify BlackBerry phone. I don't want to use Apple phone. F11. Now, if we notice something, phone is initialized with BlackBerry. Phone is getting initialized. Phone is an interface, right? This is an object reference of a interface, or you can say that variable of a interface. I cannot specify something. Let me just stop this or complete this code. So it is completed. I cannot specify something like this. Even if I specify, notice something. I specified something, it immediately started asking me to generate a method inside it, right? Which is not possible. So this is a wrong way. See, notice we cannot create an object reference of a, say we cannot create a, we can create object reference. Let me just jot it down. Where is my epic pen? And again, it is not working. There's a problem with epic pen these days. Okay, so notice something. This is the interface, phone, and we have these two things specified. Say call and SMS. Text is very large. It is okay now, right? Call and SMS is there. Now all the implementing classes, right, can have access to these. The thing is that they cannot access it directly. They just have to specify these two methods. So we can use it. Now this is an interface, so we cannot create the object directly, but yes, we can create a reference, right? Now, if we create a reference, what object needs to be passed on? So whenever we need to create, we need to pass on the say object, right? How we can do that? So over here, we'll create a class which implements this thing. So just a second, which implements this thing. Then we can pass on this to here. So now the object is coming in, but through a class. You cannot directly initialize the object directly for an interface. So whenever you're using an interface, you need to implement the implementing class. You cannot specify new interface name directly, right? So over here, I would be initializing the class name, say BlackBerry phone or Google phone or Apple phone, and then it would be calling off. Now, see, let us just use this concept somewhere else where we would be using it normally, right? So let us just do one thing. Let me just switch back to Java perspective. This is the button to move back to Java perspective. And here, I'll just double click here so that we can get to see the project explorer, new class, and I'll name this as, say, dynamic browsers, right? Here in dynamic browsers, there are few things that we need. So first of all, main method. Now over here, first of all, we need the, why it is suggesting me strict math all the time. Yeah. So the thing is, we need to have a variable that is browser name, and this should tell us that which browser we would be using. Say Chrome, right? We are ready with Chrome. We can work with Chrome, right? So if we have Chrome browser, if condition, what is the condition? Browser name dot equals, and it should be equal to Chrome. If it is equals to Chrome, what was the code? Let us just go back to day 2 and copy paste that code. So over here, Selenium basics, and this was the code for Chrome driver. I'll just copy this code and I'll paste it over here in the dynamic process. First thing is done. Now, if you notice something, we have added it, but again, there is no library for Selenium. Right click over the project, go to properties, go to Java build path, then go to libraries, add external jars and add all these jars. The moment you add them, the error would be gone. For example, the error has gone here, right? Now we would want to open a page. So say driver dot get, and what's the URL? https www.facebook.com, right? Say after opening facebook.com, I would want to go to two other pages. Say driver.get, right? And say https www.google.com. Then in the ending, I would want to go to a page that is driver.get, and the address is this, that is https www.who.int, right? So these are the three pages that I would want to open, and I've made a mistake. Let us just rectify it, right? Make sure that you're specifying the completely qualified URL. From where you can get the completely qualified URL? Simply go here, say facebook.com, copy this, right? You'll see the URL here, copy this and go back to the code and paste it, right? The best practice is this, to copy the say URL. Now this is done for Chrome browser. We need to have the code for say Firefox browser. So else if the condition browser name dot equals, this time it should be equal to something that is Firefox, right? So for Firefox, we need to have the code again, the Selenium basics, and I'll just copy the code, and here I'll just paste this code. So dynamic browsers, and I'll paste the code. This is done. Now the same three things will be just repeating those things again, and here this is also done, right? So this is the code. Now what I'll do, I'll simply run this code. It will take a little bit time for the Chrome browser to open, and then it would be opening these three pages. So the first page is opening, that is facebook.com. The very moment this page opens up completely, it will start requesting google.com. So notice this over here, this is rotating. It completed and then it opened google.com, then it opened WHO, right? So over here, this part is done. Now let us just try with Firefox browser. So what I'll do is, instead of Chrome, I'll just specify Firefox. So over here, Firefox, control F11. Again, the code would execute, but this time it would be choosing Firefox browser. You can see with the logs. The logs are red in color and there are a lot of logs, right? The browser is opened. It is taking us to facebook.com. The moment page load completes, then google.com and then who.int, and this is done, right? But there is a problem, right? What's the problem? You're just repeating these lines of code. So what I'll do is I'll just move them outside. But again, a problem. I just moved them outside, but we are not able to work with them, right? I'll just remove them from here. If I run this code, this will cause us trouble. Why? Because there is no variable driver. So it is not able to understand from where driver is coming up, right? Now, what will I do in this case? Now over here, if I go to the official website of Selenium, that is seleniumhk.org, you guys would notice something. If I go to the download section, then if I go to the API docs for Java, right? These are the API docs. And here, if I look up for something, there is an interface named as WebDriver. Whenever there is an interface in the API doc of Java, or you can say that Java doc, it would be specified in italics here in the left section. If it is italicized, this means that this is the interface, and you can see that WebDriver is the interface, right? What are the implementing process? Chrome driver, Edge driver, event firing web driver, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, Opera driver, remote web driver, and Safari driver. So there are a lot of drivers, right? Majorly, we would be using Chrome driver and Firefox driver most of the cases. We would be using Internet Explorer driver as well. We would be using, say, Edge driver as well. Event firing WebDriver is for special cases. Whenever we are not able to work with some normal actions, we need to use this event firing WebDriver. A remote WebDriver is for Selenium Grid that we would be using in the, say, framework part. And Opera driver is used very less. Opera browser is not used much now. And regarding this Safari driver, it is very unstable. So I would suggest you guys to use, say, Chrome browser or Firefox browser in case if you're using Macintosh. Okay, so all these things are done. Now, as we know that Chrome driver is implementing this thing, so we can also see that over here implemented interfaces, and WebDriver is an interface, right, which has been implemented over here in Chrome driver, right? This is a class. Let us just do one thing, specify something over here in the code, and what I'll do is I'll initialize the object reference of a interface now. So WebDriver driver. Now I have specified this thing. This means that I can simply remove this particular part from there and there, right? Done. Save this. Now you can see that the problem is not gone yet. So what we have to do, we just need to initialize it as null just for a while so as to tackle this issue. Now, if you notice something, 3 lines of code has decreased now. Okay, control F11 and the functionality would remain same. So what it helps us in say doing this, so it is just helping us in decreasing the lines of code. We don't have to specify the redundant data, the repeated data, right? We are not repeating the lines of code. Everything is done in the normal way. You can see that Firefox browser is opened and it is doing the thing. Then I'll just open the Chrome browser, right? So Chrome browser, I just specified the browser name here, right? If else is calculating which driver needs to be initialized, right? And then it is just initializing it automatically. Okay. And then you can see that Chrome browser has opened, facebook.com is opening up, then google.com would be opening up, and then in the ending, who.int would be opening up, right? So these are the 3 things that we wanted it to do. We wanted our browsers to do, and this is what we are achieving as well. Now, make sure that you're getting these logs. No need to worry about these logs. These are a lot of logs. These are not errors. So no need to worry. These are red in color. Whenever there is a problem, for example, I'll just put in a problem myself. Okay, say what problem? Here, I'll just put in a problem, that is, say system.out.println, and here 1 divided by 0. Okay, it is a logical issue. Control F11, it will start executing the code. At line number 17, it will fail, right? So facebook.com will take a little bit time to open. Once opened, we can work with it. And here you can notice something now. There is a error. Whenever there is an error, it looks something like this. Exception in the thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception. Then it tells us about the error, that is divide by 0 at dynamic browsers.main and the line number 17. If I click on this, it will directly take me to this line where the error is. Now I've got to know the error. I can simply remove this, right? So this is how it works. And this is how you can make use of interfaces so that you can decrease the lines of code being written, right? And one more thing, we would be using the way this way only, that is WebDriver driver equals to Chrome driver or WebDriver driver equals to Firefox driver, right? So this was for today's lecture. If you have any queries, you can feel free to ask. Any queries, guys?